So we're now I just need to check my Instagram, make sure that that is up and running as well. It was not. Can I get in before it starts? I think I got in before it started. We're talking about prospect harvesting and creating a pipeline for yourself, because a pipeline in the automobile industry runs about 90 days. So everything that you do right now is going to pay off towards the end of August and into September. The reason why we talk about pipeline this time of the year is that I get a ton of coaching calls from members of the Auto Dealership Academy. That is not this private members Facebook group of the Auto Sales Academy, but the members of the Auto Dealership Academy. And those individuals in November and December, especially the ones that are struggling. So if you're struggling right now to sell 10 vehicles per month with predictable consistency, it's not about struggling to sell 10 vehicles, period. That's a little bit different conversation. I'm happy to have that with you. But if you've been in the business for 6 months or more, and that's really who my client is, and this is who I really want to help you with. It's not to say that you can't be a novice and new in the industry and looking for all the help and the advantages and the benefits in order for you to be able to flourish and have a great career. It's just, we typically have people who are in the business 6 months. A lot of them, the majority, I would say the bulk, are strugglers that are in about 5 to 10 years in the business. And the struggling part is there just isn't a better word for me to possibly think of that will make sense to you as well. You may be saying to yourself, well, Bill, I wouldn't consider myself struggling at selling 8 and 9. I would probably average 12 per month throughout the entire year. But yeah, I've had a couple of bad months this spring. The problem with a bad month is that in order for you to make up a 20% deficiency going forward with every single other month, is your expectation is probably, and by expectation, I mean objective to goal, is probably in the neighborhood of objective is at 100% of your capacity. And then your goal is probably 120% of your capacity. When we talk about, those are really targets, by the way, though that is an objective to goal is not accurate there. There are 3 categories, at least I categorize it as 3, and maybe this will make more sense for you. And I'm kind of off topic, my apologies. There is a target, there's an objective, a target, and a goal. And your objective is basically keep your job. And maybe you've defined that for yourself, that if you can't sell at least 4, 6, 7 a month all the time, then you can't possibly afford to continue doing this job. And that's the sad reality of it for a lot of us in many cases. And that's why turnover continues to be a concern. You can get over that hump of turnover very quickly when you recognize your objective, the keep your job part, is to hit 9, 10, 11 vehicles every single month. When we back that up, and we will come up on live training in the future about planning for success, and you have a look at, based on your closing ratio, what 9, 10, 11 sales equates to in terms of people that you need to have in your pipeline, in your funnel. And this is where I'm going to bring it full circle, and it'll make sense. And the reason why I started off with that dialogue is that selling 10 vehicles per month, let's keep the numbers really simple, straightforward, and easy, nice and round. If you want to sell 10 vehicles per month and your closing ratio is in the neighborhood of 1 in 5, which is typically a sales industry average, I think it's more of a statistic that is made up. And somebody just goes, yeah, like our average closing ratio is 20% or 1 in 5. That means you need 50 good quality leads. And I'd say good quality leads, your intentional shoppers, such as those people that are walking in, calling in, or e-leads, are good quality leads because they're specifically after either a price or a color or availability or a deal or some more information that they can get from you. And as much as it sounds like they're doing research, they've already transcended that. And if you've missed some of my other programs, or if you have watched some of my other programs in the past, if you've missed them, go back and watch them in the private members Facebook group of the Auto Sales Academy. If you have never seen them, it would be really helpful for you. If you've watched them in the past and you've heard me talk about those 5 steps that we make in order to get to the point of purchasing an automobile, second greatest financial decision next to buying a house, it will really make sense for you why every shopper at the point that they reach out to you is a buyer. So that's what your pipeline really needs to reflect, is not even so much, let's put a bunch of people into the pipeline. That's what advertising does. And this is the reason why we categorize buyers in those two versions, the intentional shopper and then the unintentional buyer. Where the opportunity lies for anybody who's been in the business for 6 months and more, and ideally been on the floor for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, really ideally on the floor for 5 to 10, you've got a portfolio of people that you've earned the know, like, and trust badge of honor with. And so this is the reason why this time of the year, I spend a lot of time teaching and training sales staffs and dealerships and dealer groups on pipeline development, pipeline cultivation, filling the pipeline. And albeit I call it pipeline harvesting, because rather than just blindly filling the pipeline with leads, because they're either unsold traffic leads, which are qualified leads to be able to put in your pipeline, but those are typically the intentional shopper, the one that's looking for a red hot deal, the one that is the toughest to close, and the one that closes at the lowest possible gross profit because they're looking for that fantastic deal. We put people into our pipeline that we know we're going to sell again. And that is the reason why the 90-day rule applies for us. In order for you to build that relationship, not that you need to do a whole lot of work on know, like, and trust once again, but it's getting to that stage in your relationship with your clients that they will believe you when you say, now is a great time to purchase an automobile. And you can leverage, and I wouldn't make it up. I would never lie. I would never tell you to lie. There's no reason to ever tell a little white lie, or nothing distorts the truth more than stretching it. Maybe you've heard me say that. What I would suggest that you do is you capitalize on the factors right now that make the most sense. So for somebody, leasing an automobile at any time is an excellent idea. But as we move forward into the third quarter of the year, leasing the current model year vehicle is a little less than desirable because the residual starts to drop so quickly. That being said, it's not a reason for you to talk your friends, family, relatives, your previous customers, and their referrals out of leasing. In that particular case, it could be more of an equity lease, which simply means that when the customer comes back in through the trade cycle, you may be able to get them out of their lease early because the residual was conservative, because we're at the end of the model year of that particular vehicle. Leasing becomes most attractive in the third and fourth quarter of the year. So when new model announcement comes along at September and we get a jump on what the 2027s will be, and then of course into the fourth quarter of the year where sales typically settle down because the advertising machine gets throttled back, is an excellent opportunity for anybody that is in the market to lease a vehicle and get the lowest possible price, because the leasing companies believe that that vehicle will be worth the most amount of money. And then of course, as the year unfolds, every single month they drop it, which is just like your trade-in allowance that should have an expiration date stamped on it. If your used car manager is not in the practice of doing it, this is how you create urgency and scarcity with your client, that now is a great time to trade in because your appraisal is going to expire at the end of the month, or now is a great time to lease a vehicle because next month the residuals are going to drop, as they always do, because we're anticipating the new vehicle coming along. And that's how you fill a pipeline. It's picking the customers that you know are going to buy. And that's the reason why I call it harvesting. I just don't call it prospect pipeline, because a prospect pipeline includes everybody. So you've probably heard, and I've said it, and I'm not contradicting myself, but how we're going about filling that pipeline, creating the awareness and the interest. That's the first step of filling any pipeline. When you think about, okay, I like this pipeline idea, how am I going to do it a little bit better? I'm going to put a link in the comments below where you can book a call with me, a 15-minute discovery call. And if all you want to talk about is this pipeline activity so that you can get to 10 vehicles with predictable consistency, working on a 90-day rotation, you're going to do it every single day, all the time. Happy to talk about those things with you. And then, of course, if you think or I think you would be a really good fit for our manifesto, our system of 3 phases and 9 steps, which will ensure that you close everybody first visit, negotiating every deal on your terms. We can talk about that as well. But the pipeline is the thing that you need to be able to negotiate and close. And so I don't start with pipeline in our manifesto called biology. We start with the buyer behavior, because when you look at the buyers that you currently have, either friends and family, previous coworkers and colleagues, your neighbors, your previous sales that you've made, even if you've been in the business for 30 days, you can get the second vehicle in somebody's driveway. If you're selling a highly desirable vehicle, such as a luxury vehicle that is in short supply, you can probably get that client out of that vehicle in 6 months plus 1 day. The 6 month plus 1 day is what our manufacturers like us to encourage customers to keep their vehicle for. And in Canada, it's for the purpose of exporting, going to the American market for the American market. It's for the purpose of just controlling the turnover and the churn and the new automobiles. That being said, it doesn't matter in Canada if somebody wants to trade their vehicle in after a month, as long as it's not being exported, it isn't a concern. The manufacturer doesn't believe that we're trying to, in a tricky sort of way, become exporters, where vehicles destined for Canada are intended to stay in our market. Vehicles destined for the US are intended to stay in their market. We don't want to mix that up. Part of the purpose of the tariffs and the trade wars, balancing both economies appropriately. And I agree with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The news puts a spin on it, which creates news because this is bad. Anyhow, when you're filling your pipeline, regardless of what the news is talking about, to create activity, you can leverage that with your clients in order for you to have predictable, consistent sales. And what average ordinary automobile sales training doesn't talk about is how to fill this pipeline. In fact, they don't even talk about the pipeline. Average ordinary automobile sales training talks about 2 of the activities within the funnel, which falls into what I categorize as one activity called the purchase consultation. Once you've gone through the other previous activities, you get to the squeeze point of the purchase consultation, which is just before the delivery. And the reason that I do that is that if you don't have a pipeline of people dripping into your sales funnel, then it doesn't matter how great you are closing a negotiation. You don't have anybody to close and negotiate with. And so by cultivating a pipeline, not necessarily just through advertising, if you read the email ahead of time, I said, this session will be all about, more importantly, I said it would not be about spammy email. It will not be about cold calling, and it will not cost you a dime in advertising. If you watch some of my other programs, my other free training sessions on this, I don't encourage any of you to do any advertising until you're hitting a consistent 20 vehicle sales per month, consistently and predictably. Vis-a-vis, if I were to call you and say, hey, how's it going? How many vehicles are you going to sell this month? You would predictably be able to tell me with accuracy how many are going to sell. Until you get to that point, I don't believe that spending any money on advertising, as cheap as Facebook and Meta is, will really help you in any way, shape, or form. And that really includes boosting posts. So focus on Facebook Marketplace and getting your feet wet with messaging, both highly detailed and very, very brief. And then, of course, responding to those e-leads, that's where you create a system, a buying system, a selling system for yourself. And that's the reason why paying anything for advertisements is crazy, because you get such a huge influx of interest and leads. And if you don't have a system to be able to follow up with them accurately and efficiently and timely, most importantly, timely, then it'll do you more harm than good. Not to mention, it takes money right out of your pocket. And that's what the pipeline is all about. So the first step is overcoming obscurity. You need to create interest and awareness. But the biggest shortcoming for all salespeople in all industry is being top of mind with any customer that thinks of purchasing an automobile at a time. The second step is then in the pipeline, determining who should be in the pipeline. The third step is then our messaging and communication strategy. What is the hook that you can pique the interest develop that with a story that's building the relationship, and then present that irresistible offer such that the client will want to buy. Very, very easy with less expensive products than it is for us here in the automotive retail world. They're offering a walk around presentation and a demonstration drive and even a trade appraisal is a magnificent freebie giveaway. But correct me if I'm wrong, most customers are fully aware that that is how it works. It's not so much a magnificent service that we've just all of a sudden discovered and therefore want to offer it as a free service to reel people in. It's more an expectation by the consumer that if they drove in the automobile that they're driving, we would take it in on trade, dissolve that loan that they've got so they only have a payment on the new one. That being said, your irresistible offer could be the manufacturer's offering as well. It could be a cashback. It could be a specific sale point in time. It could be your private sale. It could be the Boss of the Way sale, Red Tag Days, checkered sales event, could be employee pricing, all of which will be driven by the manufacturer traditional advertising. That's the problem with a pipeline. Traditional advertising attracting the intentional shopper runs dry. Let me repeat that. The pipeline driven by advertising, attracting the intentional shopper at certain points of the year runs dry. And that's the reason why we're talking about this right now, where we build a pipeline of unintentional shoppers. And that's why the significance of who to go after, create the awareness, interest, and overcome the obscurity will create predictable, consistent sales for you, because you do need to warm them up to the idea that they're going to have payments on their automobile for another 48, 60, 72, 84, 96, 108, 120 months, whatever the term that is most affordable for your client falls into. So when we look at the pipeline activities, email is one activity that you're going to leverage quite consistently. And what you want to do with email is have a sequence of emails going out to your client as well, not assuming that one email will work. Here's a little tip and a hint that I find most helpful right now. Most email providers are flagging all email that has a link or a hyperlink, one and the same thing, vis-a-vis an attachment. So you may not have any hyperlinks in your email, but you've added an attachment of a video that you want the customer to see, either a thank you video of yourself, which I think is super, or a walk around presentation, which I think is terrific. All of those things are currently being flagged as spam and falling in the customer's junk and spam folders. Can actually fall in the promotions folder. I test this all the time with my email delivery, and we are experiencing the very same thing. So for the members of the Auto Dealership Academy, I send out a replay of today's training session, which happened this morning at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time for an hour. And they really got to get this pipeline and the tactics in order to be able to do so. So the strategy is perfectly and easily implemented. When I send that replay out to them, along with all the replays going back to January 1 of this year alone, that deliverability status is dropping significantly on me because it's falling into spam and junk and promotion. So for you, when you look at the signature of your email, and this could have already been established by an administrator at your dealership or your dealer group, you want to start taking those links out. And of course, if you're adding an attachment, that can be flagged as well. The easiest and fastest way for you to get your clients in your pipeline to open that message is to send them a text that you sent them an email with a video, and you would encourage them to check their spam, their junk, and their promotions folder to make sure that you are a safe sender and to click on that this is not spam. And that will definitely help you. Your dealership email delivery service can also negatively influence your deliverability rate because the service department is using the same delivery service, and therefore they're always adding attachments and discounts and hooks and the irresistible offers in order to bring the customer into the service department, which includes the parts department, all of which can label your particular entity of your email address spammy, even though it's coming from various addresses. But when it's your dealership at yourdealership.com or .ca in Canada, then this can alert the email service providers. So when it comes to building your pipeline, making sure that your emails are getting delivered. Conventional mail is a terrific way to maintain contact with everybody. There isn't a spam filter for that. Yes, there are lots of junk mail folders, but if it goes out as an invitation and it's a handwritten address and a stamped envelope, and you can leverage this through sendoutcards.com. You can learn a whole lot more about that when we get to leveraging apps and technology. They'll make a handwritten looking invitation style envelope so it doesn't get labeled as spam when the mail courier mail delivery service is putting it into their box of wherever they live, condominiums, mass mailboxes, individual houses, or post office boxes. It gets to the individual. So what you want to do is create, and because we have a very prescribed method for doing so, and it's a formula as well. So you leverage your email, you leverage conventional mail, then in a prescribed period of time, make a telephone call that doesn't come across as a surprise to this individual because we've built a little bit of the relationship up. Not to mention, if they're familiar with your brand and your dealership, and even better with you, you're reaching out directly to your own portfolio, then your telephone call is probably going to be received, which is terrific. If it isn't, and you want to leave a voicemail, you definitely can. I would be very brief with the voicemail. That's my recommendation all the time. These long-winded story voicemails just don't get listened to. The transcribe feature that so many of our cell phones have, which is terrific, don't get read. Just leave them a voicemail that you sent them an email. Check their email. They're going to be really excited to see the information that is there. And of course, that's where you can put all your long-winded message into. Then the other thing that I do believe in prospect harvesting you want to do is your cadence, and recognizing the fact that, before we even get to cadence, I forgot the social media aspect of things. If you can go and creep some of your audience that you're familiar with, and hopefully they have friended you, maybe you've sent a friend request, a connection request, you're following them on Instagram, TikTok, basically social, and you can make it really personalized. This time of the year, I think people love taking pictures of their vacations and what they're doing. And so that is towing a boat, towing an RV, going bicycle riding, off-road motorcycling, ATVing, camping, visiting with friends and family at reunions, going to the cottage, renting a cottage and taking the whole family up there are all wonderful opportunities for you to personalize your communication structure, and then tie that back to features that are found on your product, either accessories that can be attached from the parts and service department, such as roof racks and bike carriers and cargo organizers, to rooftop tents. I got a really good friend that's a Chrysler Dodge Jeep dealer. He just purchased the franchise, got all excited about Jeep, watching Jeep videos on YouTube, especially about overlanding, purchased a tent. He and his son went away on a trip, said it was absolutely fantastic and amazing. I think he's crazy. I wouldn't do it myself, probably because I have a very comfortable RV that has a washroom as big inside as some washrooms are in a home. And of course, I know what it's like when it rains, because we've been out there when that happens. He hasn't experienced that yet. All of which will really determine, why your client wants to purchase your automobile. And this is where you can make that connection with them, and your pipeline will give you the certainty on a daily basis that even when customers don't come in, you've got predictable flow of customers interested in your product, which will create predictable sales and income. So I just wanted to share that with you right now. It works 90 days on a 90-day rotation. I've never really let that cat out of the bag. Anytime I've done this session before and shared those details with you, I think it's really important for everybody to know, especially as this economy softens. Certainly in Canada, it's really sensitive, and it's a recession, for lack of a better term. Hopefully it does not happen to us here in the States. But I wanted you to be familiar with the idea that no matter what the economy does, no matter what your brand does, no matter what your region is going through, when you look at your customer base and you recognize that anybody will trade in and up for newer, shiny and fresh of the latest and greatest technology with better fuel economy, if they knew how affordably they could get into fresh payments, protected by a warranty and roadside assistance, that they will, when you look at your pipeline in that capacity and you're reaching out to these individuals with a really dynamite hook, that could be a feature about your product. And you talk about the story, how others are using it and how much fun that they had with it. And that's the social proof. Then finish that off with the irresistible offer. And that's not necessarily always price, and it's not necessarily the interest rate, but maybe how quickly they can get it, maybe how much selection that you have on the ground. That's what brings customers in. This is the second greatest financial decision that they make in their lives. And it is not made easily, and it's not made in jest, and we take it for granted. And that's more by accident than intentionally. It doesn't take long. Once you've sold vehicles for 30 days and you've sold 6, 8, 10, 12, 15 automobiles, it doesn't take long for you to become immune to $450, $500, $600, $700 biweekly, $2,000, $2,500, $2,900 monthly lease payments. Doesn't take long to get really, really used to that. And when you recognize that it's not your money, it's the customer's money, they make the decision. Doesn't take long for you to get bold and confident that it's not my money. Let me serve up the number. Let them make the decision. That's when you can get careless and overrun yourself. You can get ahead of yourself, as opposed to really helping customers make the decision they want to make. And that decision is to cut off from continuing to drive the car they're currently driving. And that is what brings it full circle to every shopper as a buyer. This is where all of your clients in your pipeline will eventually materialize, recognizing it takes a little bit longer to get that unintentional buyer to commit to higher, longer, fresher, newer payments, but they're getting newer, latest and greatest technology with better fuel economy, and an EV situation, amazing fuel economy, no cost of fuel whatsoever, of which you'd be wise to subtract that off the price of the monthly payment to really show them what their net is coming out of their pocket. My name is Bill Harvey with the Auto Sales Academy here on Facebook, the Auto Dealership Academy on YouTube and on LinkedIn. Have a wonderful day, a super weekend. It's going to be a great weekend for selling, and look forward to seeing you all next week for the Closing Aberration, where you'll close more deals first visit than any other tricky talk track out there. Again, it's a system that we follow, as opposed to just a tricky talk track or any kind of one specific talk track or any kind of specific one strategy. It's a system that you can take a customer through, because they've all thought about it, talked about it, researched the marketplace. They know how much it costs. They know what they can get it. They know what features are available on it. They touch and feel where they can't buy, and then they come in to get it from us. There's no reason at this point that you can't close that deal first visit and do them a favor and really help them out. Have a great day, super weekend. I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye-bye for now.